bitter and then sweet. But somehow the bitter remained in the sweet and has never gone away. You told us it would be like that. Not with your words, but with how you lived. The man of sorrows, acquainted with grief.
This is a very painful season for everyone, even Jesus.
There's a lot of heartache and a lot of physical ache from everyone.
What gall do we have to take our fans on such an emotional roller coaster?
They're drawing attention with every big action by Jesus.
There's a few things that happen this season that make your eyebrows just raise.
There was a moment where it felt like I was hugging Rama.
I think we are all in shock for a lot of the season.
We're asking a lot this season from people, but I know it'll be worth it.
As we're about to show John die, what is a way that we can most effectively show the impact that he had? And how can we make this matter? What we thought was a great way to do it was to show his birth and what the expectations were at his birth. The story of Zachariah is really fascinating, where he loses his voice because he doubts or questions what he's being told.
We felt like this was an appropriate place, not only to bring back a beloved character in young Mother Mary, but also to give the audience a reminder that this was foretold. And these events are foretold.
It's always really magical for me to see like something written on the page and then see it come to life. The way that Jesus like really tapped into a great deal of the relationship reacting to what occurred. The writing is just so fantastic because it really made this intense moment very personal.
The greatest light is at the end of this tunnel. And so, in a small way, it's a sort of fractal retelling of Jesus' story.
Before Jesus, it was all dark. And now there is light, but it doesn't get rid of the darkness. Pain is still there, suffering is still there. Before death, we have to live in that.
I'd say with Thomas, one of the most difficult or challenging things is this idea of wanting to make things work with Rama, but also having an obligation and a duty to Jesus. It's like his focus is split in two different types of ways.
I mean, I basically share with him that it's just going to keep getting harder and harder and harder.
Peter and I are very different people.
You are? But marriage is marriage.
We actually knew from season 1 what we were going to do with Rama. That was always the plan. Thomas needs a reason to doubt.
We believe it's plausible that Thomas had some hurt or some trauma that would have led him to be a combination of faithful, because he followed Jesus in the midst of all this, but maybe there was something that was traumatic or fatalistic about him that caused him to be less optimistic.
Well, when I first started reading the scripts for season 4, what surprised me most was the speed at which things happen. It probably took me twice as long to read this season, just because of all of the, oh, really? Okay, all right, taking breaks to do that sort of thing. The sort of rage that we see from Quintus in season 4, and the fact that he could get so sloppy and lose control in the profound way that he does. And it's so obvious to everyone around him that this Jesus person is a consequential person, that he means something. And I did not. This kind of short-sightedness, this kind of failure is something that he can't handle on a personal level.
This is a character who has at every turn been proven that his doubts are baseless.
Gather up 12 baskets to distribute the loaves and fish. Was I unclear?
Ah, no. This feels familiar. Maybe.
And so to find him in that moment where Scripture points us to somebody who's still doubting, we did the same thing we do with all of the characters. We take them from a perfectly written story and try to translate them onto screen and to imbue the characters with motivations and to make the moments that lead to choices feel emotional for the audience.
I mean, obviously, I'd like to think it's not a goodbye to Rama. I hate to say it, but I think he buries some of what Rama has taught him, just because he wants to bury as much of the pain away. You know, I knew I wasn't saying goodbye, but physically saying goodbye, that continues to be tough. There's a reason that she is who she is, and even at the end, you still see her being like, keep fighting.
My wife sent her a text today and summed it up exactly what I wanted to say as well, so I thought I'd read this. She said, "Hi, friend. Wish I could be on set today, though I'm sure I would be an emotional mess. No doubt I would be adding to tears that are already being shared. Regardless, I just want you to know I love you. I really do, and I'm so thankful for your talent, but also for your sweetheart. You made Dallas's work life a lot easier and more enjoyable. Truth be told, you made everyone's job easier. I could go on, but my thoughts are easily summarized in this. You will be profoundly missed." I love this girl. Thank you for giving so much to the show.
It's the first loss that we witnessed together, and that's a shock. I think grief takes its time with you too. There are moments of levity, of course, but it's always there. We're always, I think, thinking about it, and it's affecting a lot of things, and has caused, I think, a lot of confusion too.
I've been watching Jonathan as Jesus, and it's been so interesting to see how this season you see that there is a huge miscommunication that's happening between he and the disciples, and you see pain, and you see him feeling hurt, that he's not being understood.
They take offense when I show humility and deference to the powers of this world, instead of, I don't know, turning the Roman soldiers into pillars of salt.
They're only human. What did you expect?
Also human. Rabbi, what are we doing? Why would we just help Romans?
There was an existing expectation of Jesus already. They're like, you come, you're gonna be riding, sword to blazing, we're gonna raise up this army, and we're gonna, tear down the Roman Empire.
There's such profound lack of understanding at a fundamental level about what Jesus is offering, about what it means to follow the Messiah.
I believe his words and his lessons. They changed my life, but they're not where this ends. He's the Messiah, Z.
I know.
Do you?
So we're talking about the laundry scene. Do you remember?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, are you kidding me? It's one of my favorite scenes. It was a great scene.
I think it was my first day.
First day too. I literally landed and they were like, "We're filming this tomorrow."
We've had talks about how we miss seeing those moments of their daily lives as, like just these petty activities that we all go through. Yeah. And how was it for them back then?
And it was cool to see from that mundane activity what revealed through our characters. Like exactly. for Judas, I think he's very, very ambitious and excited. And he wants to get moving. He wants to start whatever Jesus is going to do. He needs this to start happening.
Stick to numbers, nerd. We're gonna go back. It's the same. You're in the same position you were, you're imagining a contingency for something unsaid.
And even though I'm living radically different than before, I just can't stop seeing how we could be doing things faster and more efficiently. I was thinking, We could set up donation points in the various villages that
You're
we
right.
visit too.
My vision for the world is bigger than you can dream.
He's literally a littering line of mistakes. He just needs to calm down, take a chill pill, and get with the program, man.
I think Jesus is really looking for the right way to sear it into their brains that, like, you guys have no idea. We see Jesus really start to take umbrage at their attitudes, at their, with their behavior.
Rabbi?
Yes, Big James?
Remember when you said that we could ask for anything and it would be given us?
Knock and the door would be opened.
When James and John ask him to be at his left and right hand, at least from our perspective, I feel like that's not what he kind of needs in the moment right now.
I think at this point in the ministry, they're just like two kids. They have no clue.
Are you able to drink the cup that I will drink? Or be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?
Yes, we are able. We are the sons of thunder.
When Brothers Thunder, James and John, ask for seats of power in his kingdom, he really does kind of snap, because he's been clear about what he's about and what he's doing, and they're sort of not listening. They're threatened that Peter got a new name and a new title, and it seems important. And they're like, well, we should get new names and new titles, and we should have some status as well.
I don't know if they get jealous per se, but they're just wondering, wait, are we next? And when does that happen?
We'll do anything for you.
You don't even know what that means either.
Tell us. We'll do anything.
Jesus has to knock it down. I find that it's a moment when we try to imbue Jesus with profound sadness, and we give him a moment to step away from it all.
I have already been given a prophecy from God, and I believe it is about this exactly. The prophecy is that a man will die for the people so that our nation will not perish. This may be that man. We will hand him over ourselves before there is an uprising. Rome will not destroy us.
The amount of intensity just concentrated in this one season, I feel like there's a lot of tension that really comes to a head in this season, and I knew that we were going to be heading towards something like that.
We're not far from you actually throwing stones at him, which is the most egregious thing the Jewish people can do. So we've got to start to get you there. The movie Elf, where he's throwing 90 snowballs all at once. It's, at the beginning, it's a little more one at a time. Throw it at me as hard as you can, right here. As hard as you can.
I don't think they're going to be throwing real.
My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one will snatch them out of the Father's hand. I and the Father are one.
So there's this moment when Jesus is preaching. He's in the temple, which is the only place where the religious leaders could actually execute capital punishment. It was very much a serious thing. They rarely did it. And here they go. They actually try to kill him in the temple. And he's with his followers.
Good works. If you've done any, that's not why we're stoning you. It's for blasphemy.
So I think a lot of people, including myself, sometimes forget that actually was a moment before the arrest and trial of Jesus. And to see the things that would have caused them to react that way, to cause the religious leaders to be so extreme that they tried to kill him in the temple.
He has to call them out publicly because they're doing it in the name of his Father. They're doing it in the name of God. So he has to be like, hold on a second. This is not how you do this.
Oh, someone get the temple guards! Arrest him!
We're on the way to our third Shiva in less than a year.
And?
He's the Messiah. Shouldn't we be winning, not losing constantly? Stumbling around in sackcloth and ashes all the time.
This is the expectation that came with the believers who were already there. Tamar and Gaius came with no expectations of him. there was only faith. I mean, Gaius he was already curious from the get-go, and it didn't take much to convince Tamar either. And I think it's kind of an innocence.
What's it like to play the role where Jesus says to you that you have greater faith than anyone he's encountered? That's humbling, intimidating, scary things I've done in the past. The fact that I'm an outsider, the fact that I'm not Jewish, but ultimately I just don't feel that I'm worthy. When we were shooting that scene, Dal said to me, that's a majority of why people don't find Jesus, because they feel like they're not worthy.
I've worked with Kirk in every project I've ever done from the beginning of my career, over 20 years. He's someone that I can trust to show the shades, the nuances.
And background. Background. Action.
This way.
Praetor Gaius, you only need to say the word, and he will be healed.
That statement of faith from this Gentile, this pagan, applies to all of us. And it's just say the word, Lord, and we'll be healed. It's profoundly moving for me personally.
We get a chance to really show a character arc over the course of multiple seasons. I think is a really cool payoff. And I think there's no one better for that than Kirk.
Well, I go out to thank him. Little do I know, he's in pain. I'm shocked to see that. I give him a hug to say thank you, and then he just drops his head into my shoulder. So for me, that was just really, really beautiful. Why would I be the one to do that? I'm gonna say because of my faith. I think he trusted me to be vulnerable.
We're all unsure and confused and scared, and there's no turning back, and we have to go forward. And I think the only thing she can do is just have this sort of blind faith and trust that things are going as they're supposed to be going.
We try to imagine at ground level what our characters are going through, so that when we encounter the moments in the Bible that are fixed, that cannot be moved, that are perfectly written, we understand them a little bit better.
All your life, you've been called Simon, one who hears. But today, I call you Peter. Rock.
We also do portray some of the other characters in the show, expressing a little bit of confusion of someone like Simon being called a rock.
Not saying I would ever disagree with Jesus, but that doesn't really sound like Simon.
Sure. Because he's not one. He tends to be unstable. He tends to be fiery, kind of a bull in a china shop. Zebedee says, oh, well, I just wouldn't have thought that for Simon. Matthew says it to Jesus. Man, he just doesn't strike me as a rock. And Jesus says, I make people what they're not.
Matthew, with his brain and given how he thinks, I think he's just processing it. He's trying to understand what the long game plan is, the picture.
You can obviously choose whomever you want, and your ways are often very different from other people's ways, but Rabbi, I must confess, it hurts.
It hurts him, as you see in the conversation that he has with Jesus. And then when he goes to Jesus to ask about it, he realizes, oh, I did something wrong too. I put you in so much danger. I could have ruined this man's life. And I think, Matthew being very emotional and empathetic, I think gets that. Not all apologies are received well. And I think that's what we see in this, in the beginning. And so it was cool to kind of say, okay, I'm gonna pray on it. I'm gonna go back to my faith and put my belief in that. And I know that it will come around. I thought the moment of bringing in the parable, the 77, I thought that was cool to kind of tie our characters in with that.
He sins against me 7 times, and I'm supposed to just forgive that.
No, not 7, but 77 times. 70 times 7.
Completion times completion. Endless forgiveness without limits.
It's a positive action, you know, to forgive. When people tell us things, first thing that we will do is say no. But then something sips in, you know, like water through rock, until the realization that enough is enough. In order to move forward, we have to balance this because we have a lot ahead of us.
I like to believe that when Peter forgave Matthew, it was intense and it's all in.
It felt like not only was it plausible, it was necessary for us to deal with this, because I think that we are human and flawed and we sin and we need Jesus. We need to therefore take this story to places where the audience is reminded that these are not stained glass windows, that these are flesh and blood people who have the same feelings. You're not ruined because you still harbor some resentment.
I think with time, I have opened my eyes and I've seen how hard it is for him, the difficulty that he comes across in his life. And I think that my compassion has opened. It's over.
Has proved unsure in heaven and on earth.
When I first read that they were incorporating our musical abilities, if you may, I was super excited. And it's going to be kind of like a breath of fresh air from the action, because as everyone's just reflecting on the day, reflecting on the events that have happened, and I think it might be super powerful. It's just like a tableau of just some music here, some staged play that we've created, some fighting with sticks and wearing togas and things like that.
It's really beautiful to see Austin and Noah and Jordan playing instruments and singing.
You know, our composers are the best, and they sat with us and we rehearsed it with them, and they wanted it to feel very authentic and not, you know, like overly rehearsed or like we're perfect at this. Just, you know, the three of us getting together and playing this song. And that was so fun to do.
I was transfixed during that scene. They're so talented in the song.
Just setting you in that time, giving you a sense of location, giving you a sense of culture can oftentimes enhance the storyline and the character. To experience Hanukkah, the joy of the celebration, that even as they're being attacked and oppressed, they're still celebrating the traditions of their faith.
For a moment, I think we're all able to forget the heaviness of the season.
In a moment of struggle, you know, coming together as a group can, you know, ease the pain and make everyone feel emotionally held and belonged, and that the journey has a meaning of its own, that you got to trust it.
Jairus received a letter from a source within the Sanhedrin. What just happened to all of you? It's about to get worse.
One of the things we do is we introduce Lazarus as a friend, intimate confidant, somebody whose whole family Jesus relies on. And all that work goes back to season 3.
There is a lot in the season that you have to read between the lines. And I think that's a real testament to the writers and the creators. I think the best kind of art allows room for the audience to bring their own imagination, to bring their own faith to the piece. Because in the long run, this is an artistic expression of the Bible.
Mary's experience with grief and with loss and with heartbreak. I don't know if it prepares her for it, but I think that there's a curiosity in her this season. And I think her understanding of pain and death and loss is like just a little different.
Where does it hurt?
Everywhere. Inside and out.
I hurt inside too. Why?
Because you've been listening.
I believe this all made Jesus really sad. I think realizing there's no way around this. I have to go through with my Father's plan, doing what he must do.
Lazarus! Come out!
This was going to be a watershed moment for the community. You either believe that Jesus is the Messiah, or you don't. And so, what do you do as somebody in a position of authority at that point? Get rid of the evidence, get rid of the person who's causing this division? I mean, it was massive. There were many witnesses to it.
This tomb that we all think is the end is kind of the beginning for Lazarus, and soon a new beginning for Jesus. Her peering into the void. I think she knows that it's not just empty. And it's not the end.
How many ounces would you like?
The whole jar.
My, you are charming.
You need to listen. This is for the most important king the world has ever known.
Mary of Bethany buying the jar of pure nard, washing someone's feet, or even anointing them with expensive oil, there was something considered kind of inappropriate about that. To the Pharisees present, it was extremely alarming and upsetting and really gave them grounds to be like, not only is this inappropriate and violates a bunch of different kind of cultural standards, I might point out, like, not only that, but he was saying that wherever the gospel would be proclaimed in the world, this story would be told about her. Like, he's not only letting it happen, but he's saying, I endorse this, and actually people are going to be telling this story for the rest of time, and here we are.
You're letting your sister touch his feet. That's degrading.
Have you heard nothing of what the teacher has said?
All right, this is enough. Jesus.
Once again, Shmuel. There is no law in Torah commanding that a woman cover her hair.
To see something happen that doesn't look holy to him in a moment where he's on the fence and he's trying, I see it more as a visceral response, not an intellectual response. It's not something he's made a final decision about. It's just that he can't be around something that he sees as unholy or obscene. That moment where there was a possible unification failed. And it failed because Shmuel was unable to deal with his entire life's training in that moment.
We're all gonna do things wrong. We're certainly all gonna do things sinful. Try not to. We are creatures that God made in his image, but we need Jesus. And so it always comes back to serving Jesus. And what Mary does in that moment, Jesus tells us, is pure. This is a pure act of love, devotion, surrender.
I think she's just throwing the entirety of her identity at the feet of Christ in that moment. And she's honoring him in the only way she knows how. Because if this is God, he has no need for money, for food, for any gift of human origin or design. She is doing the only thing she knows to do in the only way she knows to do it, in this last moment she thinks she has with this person.
The more I read the songs of David, the more I felt the need to write one of my own.
Please just know that whatever this is going to be, it's not finished.
In season 4, Jesus gets a little weary and heavy laden. And when Jesus is weary and heavy laden, who does he have to turn to? And Mary's psalm is the ultimate, beautifully worded capture of all of that.
When I read what the writers had her write, I had to sort of pause and like, did she actually write this? This sounds so much like what she would have focused on if she wrote.
Reading the scripts of season 4 really felt like, okay, we're almost done. And I think that scene, having it set in the future, we have experienced what we have experienced. We are torn down. We're realizing we are at the end of this life.
You really see time running out in season 4. And the way we hurtle to this momentous conclusion of season 4 may shock people. They may be like, we're here already, now?
Bittersweet is a term that we use often, and I think it captures the gospel, and I think it captures the following of Jesus. There's never too much sweet without also experiencing some bitter. And the sweet is more beautiful because of the bitter. The last 10 minutes of episode 7 explore that in detail and ask questions about it.
It's a lot of looking back and realizing what Jesus must have been going through during those days leading up to the crucifixion, and how lonely he must have felt that we didn't quite understand what was going on and wouldn't.
Those familiar with the Bible story know that we are heading up to some of the biggest events that have ever happened on earth.
I think he knows that, okay, in a little while, you will no longer see me. He won't be there much longer. And so I think the more that he can impart with authority to them now, the greater the impact he can have on their understanding of this experience and their time with him, the more it's all going to make sense. He sets them up to figure out for themselves what's going to be needed once he's gone.
I remember you wishing there could be another way. And looking back, I do too.
I still don't know why it has to be this way. The bitter often mingled with the sweet. Maybe I never will. At least, not this side of.
Good. Enjoy your break, everybody!